Okay, I think we should, oh, 1 second. Oh yeah, 1 sec here. Sorry, I'm talking to Kyle, who's here. He's, for those of you who don't know, he's my brother, and he's also the co-creator of Spark and Synapse. I'm just making him a co-host. Okay, yeah. So let's go ahead and get started. The way this will work is most of the time I'll just be sharing my screen and you won't be forced to look at my face. So I'm just gonna kind of walk you through how you might want to go look for properties in your MLS to use in Synapse, essentially how Synapse works, how you can customize it. So I'll be showing you that all on my screen. But first, I just kind of want to give a brief little synopsis of why we made Synapse the way we did. Basically, in Synapse, for those of you who haven't used it yet, we're going to give you a bunch of different results using a bunch of different methods for getting adjustments for each feature that you want to analyze. And our goal was to kind of treat your results for an adjustment the way you treat your comps in your grid. Like nobody, well, hopefully nobody is determining the value of a property based on one comparable. And I kind of feel the same way about adjustments. So we give you a bunch of different adjustments. You can toss out the ones that are totally crazy, like the one that says a full bath is worth 80 grand on a $200,000 house. You can just toss those right out. Synapse, by the way, automatically will toss out most of the super wonky results, and you can customize what is considered wonky. So you can just not include those at all. And then you narrow it down to the results you think, sorry, I'm looking at the wrong, you narrow it down to the results you think are reliable, and then you just reconcile it. You can maybe place more weight on paired sales or place more weight on the ones with the least error score, the lowest error score. And then you just like determine your adjustment based on that data, similar to how you treat your comps in the grid. So that's kind of the overall premise of how it works. I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. One moment. Okay, you should see my MLS. I'm getting a thumbs up that you are. And just give me 1 second. I also want to preface all this by saying we're going to watch the chat. So if you want to say anything in chat, feel free. Also, I don't mind at all if you guys want to unmute yourselves and just cut me off and jump in with questions. This is probably going to go a lot better if you just feel free to ask any questions you want. So anyways, yeah, feel free to unmute yourself, ask your question, or if you don't want to unmute yourself, just use the chat. I just ask that if you unmute yourself for the question, try and remember to re-mute yourself so we don't have to hear you go to the bathroom or whatever you're going to be doing over there. Okay, so that being said, let's go ahead and get into it. This is my MLS. What I've done is I've just drew some pretend neighborhood boundaries in here. And really there's so a common question I'll get is, what's the best way to determine, or what property should I use? What am I going to upload to Synapse? So in Synapse, we do allow you, just like in Spark's market analysis, we allow you to upload up to 3 data sets. You don't have to upload 3, it's just there if you want it. And so what I typically do is I will upload one, and I recommend that everyone does this. This is the one data set I definitely would recommend you do, is go into your MLS and find the properties that are competing with your subject. Those that the typical buyer of your subject would also be looking at when they're, or would typically buy if they hadn't already sold. You guys know what I'm talking about. So competing properties, use that as your data set. And you might also ask, like, how far back can we go? So you can see here, I have this set to go back right here, I'm going back 5 years, and that's okay. Obviously, you introduce a little bit of variation the further back you go, but Synapse will handle appropriately, and I'll show you in a little bit here, the market conditions, AKA time adjustments. And I'll show you how we do that. And if I remember right, it was Jake Greener who's here who kind of helped us tweak that to be a little bit more intuitive and customizable. So, yeah.
It's great now. I like what you've done, the 4 options.
Nice, that's good. That's great to hear. So yeah, go back as far as you'd like. If you're, so we've had people that say, well, for competing properties in my market, I might only have 10 in a year. So that would not be very many. You might get really funky results if you only have 10 properties. And that also brings me to another point, is what's the minimum? And Unfortunately, there's no super great answer. You'll see a lot of appraisers post that or write blogs or whatever that you need to have at least 30. I don't think that's true. I think you can have good results with less than that, but there also is no dead minimum. Most statisticians will tell you that for measuring one variable, you need at least 10 properties. So I would say 10 is the absolute bare minimum, but you definitely would want more than that if at all possible. So if you only have 10 in a year, maybe go back 5 years and get 50, and that should help out quite a bit. So anyway, so what I've done is I've got my competing properties. That's one of my data sets. I also turned off all my parameters. You can see I had one set here for GLA, for lot size. I think I had stories and year built, which is what I wanted for this particular appraisal. And I also got rid of those that were fixer-uppers. So in my MLS, we have this thing called fix up needs repair. I just got rid of those. Now you don't have to do that. In fact, once we have the condition adjustment added to Synapse, you may want to include all those because it might help. But for now, we don't have that ability to help you with the condition adjustment yet. So I have fixer-uppers turned off. So hopefully help my results be a little bit more accurate. But that's all I did for my competing properties. Then I also got the neighborhood, which was everything. And I know you'll probably hear some people tell you this is a bad idea. And in many cases, it might be, but I will show you how you can actually use what we call modeling to make all the properties in the neighborhood actually give you good results specific to your submarket. So anyways, I'll show you that using our modeling feature. So what I typically do is I'll get the competing and then I'll get the broader neighborhood, which would for me be all the single family detached homes in this area right here that I drew a polygon around. You obviously don't have to do it like that. You do it however you think is best, but I usually get the competing and then neighborhood. And then the third one is just kind of, I think I already said this, but the competing one I would say is a must-have. The neighborhood is kind of up to you if that's really going to be helpful to you or not. You'll know once you play around with it. And then for the third one, you may want to use maybe over here on the other side of this canal, there's a similar neighborhood that would be considered competing properties, but outside of your neighborhood boundaries. You might want to grab that if the values are similar, thing like the type of property is similar. You might want to grab something from a neighboring competing area. You can grab that, or what some people do, and I'm actually going to show you just so you can see what it looks like, is you might want to try just loading in just those maybe 10 properties that are most similar to your subject. So you narrow that competing down to just what's most similar to your subject. That will work, but only for a few different things, which I'll show you. In other things, you might either get no results or wonky results. For example, if you need an adjustment for a view, like a greenbelt view or something, and you only load in 10 properties and those none of them have that view that you need to get an adjustment for, obviously that's not going to help you at all. Or if you only had one that had the view and the other 9 didn't, that's going to not probably give you good results. So anyways, hopefully that makes sense. But before I move on, does anybody have a question about getting the data and the data sets? Okay, I will move on. Also, I will try and go a little bit slower. I tend to talk fast when I do these, so I'll try and talk a little bit slower here. Again, though, I will have this recorded, assuming there's no huge problems in the webinar. I'll record it and we'll send it out to everybody. Okay, so now let's go ahead and move over to Synapse. Oh, can you use the comps you've added? Thanks for the question, Matt. So yes, if I'm understanding your question correctly, like let's say you, if you're talking about you go into Spark, you have that MLS file that has the comps in it, you load into the grid, then yes, you can load that same file into Synapse. And that's actually what I'm about to do in this demo here. It doesn't work great, but it can work in certain situations. And yes, as your third choice, that's absolutely something you can use. And so that's actually what I'm going to show you. And in this demo, that is going to be my third choice, is just the comps I might have loaded into the grid. And in fact, I think that's what some appraisers are going to do, is just they'll take the same 3 files they loaded into Spark, their comps for the grid, their competing file, and their neighborhood file, and just load those in. And that should work just fine. Again, though, it may be something you just need to play around with to see. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and move on. So this is Synapse. It's just synapse.sparkforappraisers.com is the website. You log in with your same Spark login that works fine. Make sure you choose your state and MLS. This is all pretty self-explanatory stuff. Now, template might be the first thing you have a question on. So you can create templates, which is ways in which Synapse will analyze the data or features that it's going to analyze. So I will show you as we go through what is part of a template, but you can see in here, I have like high end for the community of Val Vista Lakes. I've got rural template, a historic neighborhood template for the city I live in, which is Mesa, and then just my standard plain old basic tract home template, which is this one. So that's just what I have right now, but you can create more templates. You can clone your templates to make new ones. You can have one for certain clients if they want to see things a certain way, however you prefer to do it. It's very similar to the profiles that we have in Spark's market analysis, or even on the grid side, we have that as well. So that's what you want to use templates for, is to kind of customize the way Synapse is going to work right out of the box. Okay, so you choose your effective date, and then you can either name your session or not name it. I am just going to call this, we'll call this webinar 1. And if you don't name it, it's just going to assign a number to it, but you can use whatever name you want, your file number, the address, whatever you prefer. And I will show you before we move on, you can actually, so this is where Synapse is quite a bit different than Spark, is we save everything you do in Synapse. So all of your sessions, so if I click use an existing session, you'll see here's a list of the sessions that I have created and not deleted. You can of course delete any of these. In fact, let me see, I'll zoom in a little bit so maybe you can see it a little bit easier. But this is, one I did on this property. I've got a demo session I did back in August, so it'll have a timestamp. And if I want to, I can click this button right here, which is the load button. I can click that and it will just load me in right to the exact moment where I left off when I was in that session. So it will record every click that you do and remember all of that. Okay, so let's get out of that and let's start our session. Okay, so here we go. This is the name. These are our data sets for webinar 1, which is what we named it. And again, at any time where you see these little blue triangles, I'll zoom in a little bit, maybe make it a little easier to see. Anytime you see those little blue triangles, you can click that and rename it to whatever you want. And you can see we also have those for the data sets. So if I want to rename, instead of calling it data set 1, which is pretty generic, I can name it maybe my competing properties or neighborhood or grid or whatever. So let's go ahead and load in the properties. So this one down here is what I downloaded from my MLS. I'm just going to drag it up, and you can either drag and drop it just like Spark, or you can click the little blue cloud and tell your computer where the file is that you want to upload. So just identical to Spark in that way. And if you hover over it, it'll tell you how many closed sales there were, the range of sales as far as their dates, the price, low, high, and average. Okay, now I'm going to go ahead and load in the neighborhood as my data set 2. This one might take a little longer because there's, I think, over 1,000 in there since I went back a ways. Oh, and by the way, while that's pulling, it's actually pulling in all the public records as well. So we do have public records nationwide, just like in Spark, but we house those public records right on our own, in our own database. So we don't have to reach out and wait for CoreLogic or anything like that. It just all sits right on in the same database as the properties you upload. So that way we have really fast, almost instant access to all those properties. So anyway, so yeah, we've pulled in not only the MLS, but the public records data for those 1,200 properties. And while we're here, I'm just going to click here and name it. So I'm going to name this competing. I'll name this one neighborhood. And this one is just going to be the properties for my grid. So I'm going to name it grid. Again, I'm not recommending that you do this. You can, but it's just, I just wanted to show you what it would be like if you did do it. All right, and I'm going to drag in that file, which I believe only has like 9 or 10 properties.
Brandon,
Yes.
For competing, it looked like you pulled in 408 properties. Is that correct?
Yeah, but it's because I went back 5 years.
Oh, okay, thank you.
Yeah, no problem. So yeah, that's 5 years worth on those. Now you can see my 7 sales, that only went back, what, 4 months for those 7. That was what I actually load into the grid. So anyways, yeah. Oh, I told you it'd be 9 or 10, but it's only 7. All right, so now we're set. And we can go ahead and click done. And by the way, anytime you make a change, you see this save layout button appear. If I click save layout, it means it's going to save these names that I changed to that template that we're in. All right. Oh, and before I move on, I should also show you what's really important, transactional adjustment settings. So basically when you're calculating results for adjustments, the proper way to do it is to first handle what's called transactional adjustments. Those are things that aren't necessarily related to the property itself, but to the transaction, like when it took place, like time adjustments, seller concessions, what type of financing, whether it was REO or short sale, whether it was fee simple or leasehold ownership, that kind of thing. So if I click transactional adjustment settings, right now, let me zoom out to normal. Right now, what it does is it shows you how it's handling property rights. So right now, it's removing any properties that are leasehold. Now, obviously, if you're appraising a leasehold, you don't want to remove those, but it is removing those. Now, in the future, for all of these things where it's just removing them, we are going to allow you to actually get adjustment results for these. It won't be something where you can just remove them and that's all there is. We will allow you to get results for maybe an REO versus a non-REO or a short sale versus a non-short sale. But for now, these are your only options. Just remove the properties and deduct seller concessions if you want to. If you don't, you just uncheck that box. And it will tell you when you hover over this little eyeball icon, how many properties are being removed or modified. So in this case, one of my 400 competing properties was an REO sale. So it's removing that. And 8 of my neighborhood properties were REOs. Okay, and now here are the actual time adjustments. So what it's doing is it calculates using the best fit polynomial 4. This is the default. It calculates that and it draws this line. And so basically all these properties look pretty stable. And then right around the past year or so, things just kind of started skyrocketing, as all of you are aware. So it will account for all of that. So these won't be as increasing as much as these were, as an example, as far as a per month rate. It will adjust everything to the day. And then down here for my neighborhood, same thing. And then for my competing properties, what it did is, and this is another reason why it may not be a great idea to use only 7, is because it's hard to determine accurately what a time adjustment might be. Now, in my case, it's not a huge deal because the oldest sale is what, 4 months ago. So it's not a huge deal. But in this case, if I did have, they were further spread out over time, then this time adjustment might be less accurate. So in that case, and what Jay recommended we do, he was an alpha tester for us, is we added in the ability to type in your own. So if you were to go over to Spark and really fine tune and figure out what you thought your time adjustment be, you could just click that and then say, I want to adjust it by month. And I want the adjustment to be, let's say 1% a month. You just type in a 1 there. So you have the freedom to choose linear, polynomial 2, whatever you think is best, that you can choose that. I'm going to go back to what it was and we'll just leave it. And you can also just turn it off and say that you don't want an adjustment. So I can say none and use that. All right, so that's it for transactional adjustments. Just keep in mind, it is important if you were to go in and try and replicate the results from Synapse yourself to try and verify numbers, which I would definitely encourage you to do, is you want to make sure you're handling transactional adjustments the same way in order to verify the numbers are accurate. All right, so I'm going to click done there, go back to our data set screen, and we're all set. So now I can click done. And then before it moves on and actually calculates all the results, it's going to ask us a little bit of information about our subject. Now, in the future, we are going to have the ability, to upload your subject and, give us more information about your subject if you'd like to. But for now, this is all we need. And this is so we can accurately calculate the depreciated cost information. So we're going to reach out to dwelling costs, just like we do in Spark, get the cost data, and then calculate adjustments using the depreciated cost method. So I'm going to go ahead and I think this property was around 1,500 square feet. We'll say it was a Q4. And the effective age, we'll say was, 15. It did have a garage that was attached. And that's basically it. That's all we need to do. One thing is we did add this a couple months ago. If instead of using the basic age life straight line method where it just takes your effective age and divides by the lifespan, and you can customize the lifespan by clicking here, you can also use the depreciation percent. So if you went ahead and did your own cost approach on the subject separately and feel like the depreciation percent should be 17.6, you can just click this, type in 17.6 and use that instead. So that's there if you want it. I'm going to click done now. And now at this point, what Synapse is doing is it's basically spinning up a bunch of little servers and calculating all the math for all the different results for adjustments it's trying to get. And the methods that we use, which you'll see on the screen here, we have paired sales, and we have group data, and we have sensitivity and depreciated cost, and then also 6 or maybe it's 7 different types of regression. So you see a lot more dots on the regression line, and that's because we have so many more types of regression that are included here. And when you hover over the dots, you'll be able to see not only the result, like this one, it says $2.91 based on Thiel-Sen regression. You'll see the error score and the t-squared. Now, you don't really need to care, I think, a whole lot about that. I don't. We added the r-squared or t-squared because some appraisers wanted that, even though I personally don't feel like it's super helpful. You can actually have a fairly low r-squared and still have it be very reliable. I have a video where I show examples of situations just like that. But what we did do is error score can be beneficial sometimes. So what we did is, you can see, let me zoom in here. I'm going to zoom in right here. You can see some of these dots are bigger than the other dots. So each of the dots represents a mathematical result based on that method and based on that data set. You can see the blue dots are the results from our competing properties, green is our neighborhood, and orange is just those 7 properties in the grid. And you can see that, as I said, some are smaller, some are bigger. The bigger the dot, the better the error score. And you don't want a lot of error. So basically, low error scores are better than high error scores. And the best error scores in a given section is noted with the black little circle around it. So that may be an indicator that that is where you might want to lean on when you're reconciling the results. So hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Just like you might say, well, this comp is better because of X, Y, and Z. This result may be better because of this. That isn't always the case necessarily, but sometimes it may be. And it's something you'll just get the hang of as you use it, and because you already know what probably good adjustments are in your area. And of course, if you're not sure and you're thinking, well, is Synapse telling me that my lot size adjustment is around $10 or is it around $2? Then obviously what you could do is just go throw the number in your grid and see where your comps adjust. If your comps adjust much closer together when it's around $3, you know that's the right adjustment to use, not way up here in the 10s. Now, doing that, you'll also get an idea of whether error score is a good method to use, or maybe you just, when it comes to lot size, want to place most weight on your competing properties, or paired sales method maybe. And so what I'm going to show you here is the ideal way, at least in my opinion, to use Synapse. Now, there's a lot to this screen here, but I'm just going to start with lot size. So let's just look at lot size for now. Now, I see virtually every blue dot, which is my competing properties, and I'm going to guess that that's probably the most reliable properties to use for my lot size adjustment. Those are all maxing out at about $3, it looks like, when I hover over these. Anything over $3 really is either the neighborhood properties or just those 7 grid properties. And you can see how way off those grid properties are right now. They're just not really, this number is not really reasonable. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to constrain those. This top slider bar, we call it the constraint slider, and you're seeing it's graying out the results that I'm sliding over. And what you're doing when you constrain like that, or you use this slider, is you're telling Synapse, I am not placing any weight or consideration on these results. They're basically garbage to me. They're not relevant. I don't want to place any weight on them. And so you can constrain them out. And then also what you can do is you can cut them. And when you snip them out using this little scissor icon right here, you're actually not really doing anything other than making it easier for you to see these results. So when I cut out this gray area, you're going to see all the rest of this kind of, it zooms in on that and it's spread out more. So I'm going to show you. I'll click that scissor icon. And now it just zoomed in on the non-grayed out area. So I can see these results better. So now I can go in and say, okay, paired sales using my neighborhood data is showing me between $1.34 and $2.44. Paired sales on my competing properties is showing me right around $3. And then I have group data, which is kind of on the lower end here. I've got regression kind of all over the place, but it does look like the regression result that had the best error score is at $2.70. It's the one with the black circle around it. And then last, I have sensitivity, which is showing me right at $3. So just based on my knowledge of this market, I know that I'm probably going to be somewhere between 250 and 3, and I'm really leaning towards 3 here. So and this is the bottom slider, this is your actual result where you're reconciling the data. I'm going to say I'm placing most weight on the regression with the best error score, paired sales on my competing properties, and sensitivity. And if I wanted to, I could also place a little weight on this grid property right here, or grid result, which is showing me $3.60. It's up to you. And then if you want to, you can constrain these out and say, you know what, I'm not really placing any weight on anything less than $2. It just doesn't seem reasonable to me. So now what I've done is I've said, okay, I have a bunch of different results here ranging from 244 up to 360. And I'm going to reconcile in the middle, placing maybe more weight on paired sales and sensitivity. And that's my result. So, oh, whoops, let me change that back down to, I didn't mean to do, using the wrong slider there. So $3 is what I wanted. So I'm going to have that on $3 and I can mark it as done. And so now I'm done. I've basically told Synapse, I'm happy with this. I'm ready to move on. I can go get other adjustment information. Now, I went through that really slowly. As you get the hang of using Synapse, just like with Spark, you'll be able to go through these much more quickly. And when you're done, you have actually quite a bit of data supporting the adjustment that you chose here. And now I just finished lot size. I do want to show you one thing. We do have comments. So I'm going to click on view comments. And the only comment you're actually going to see data for is lot size, because it's the only one that I marked as done. So as the expert, as the appraiser, you said, okay, I'm happy. I chose my lot size adjustment. I marked it as done. And so it puts in this comment, and this is customizable, but it basically says a lot size adjustment was developed at $3 per square foot. The results, based on all adjustment methods that were calculated and considered relevant, provide an adjustment range from 244 to 360. And remember, you have control over this with the constraint slider. And then it says, lastly, true paired sales, Thiel-Sen regression, robust least median squares, least absolute deviation, sensitivity analysis were the adjustment methods used to develop this adjustment. So you basically are telling the reader of your report, I've got a whole bunch of data using a bunch of different methods to support that $3 per square foot. Now, if you don't like all that and you think that's just too much, then you feel free to get rid of it. You can get rid of the method list, which is these are all the different methods. So I can uncheck that. The comment just gets a lot shorter there, but you kind of customize, add as much or as little information as you want there. And then finally, you can also click add additional comment. So I can click that, and if I want to, I can say something like the appraiser placed most weight upon paired sales and sensitivity, or whatever you want to say. And then Synapse will remember that. What does apply all mean? Good question. Okay, so right here in blue, it says apply to all, and you have that basically for every feature that you might get an adjustment for. So apply all means take the settings that you chose for lot size comments and apply it to everything else. So if I say, you know what, I want to check every single box, I want as much data as possible, then I can hit apply all. It says, are you sure? And now you can see it's checked every box for all the features. So now it's going to take your comment settings and apply that to everything. Now, the one thing it won't do is the custom comment that I just typed, it won't put that down there because that shouldn't really happen. You don't want that. But everything else, as far as the settings, it'll apply that to everything. And again, if you don't want much data, you just want a little, then you can hit apply to all, and it will only do that for the other features. And you can also decide whether you want the transactional adjustment comment. So this comment is basically just telling the reader of your report that you accounted for market conditions. I'm sorry, that you accounted for transactional adjustments. And these are the transactional adjustments you accounted for: property rights, financing terms, distressed sales, seller concessions, and market conditions. And of course, with that one, you can also add your own custom comment, or just turn it off if you don't like it. Hopefully that makes sense to everybody. Let me know if you have any other questions. All right, so let's go ahead and actually let's hit done. don't want to, and it will ask you, do you want to save that to your template? So it'll remember your settings and your custom comment if you want, and it will use that in your template for next time you use that same template. All right, I'm going to say no. All right, so we've done lot size, and that's great. And now let's take a look at GLA. Actually, hang on one second. Oh yeah, sorry, Kyle is here helping me when I make mistakes here or overlook things. So a couple other things. One, I showed you the scissor icon, how it snips out that part. Also, what you can do is reset it. So this icon here will appear after you use the scissor icon, the snipping icon, and it will put everything back to how it originally was. So if I click that, it just goes right back. And so now I have all those results that I didn't want in there. So if you realize you made a mistake, just hit that reset button and it will put everything back. I'm going to go ahead and put that back there. And again, if we want to snip it, we can, and we're good to go. All right. And again, one last thing though, if you using the snipping icon doesn't do anything as far as results or comments or anything, all it is for you to help zoom in on the remaining results that you're trying to look at to help kind of spread things out more. And then lastly, regarding lot size here, we have this little icon here. It looks like a warning icon. This is showing you all the results that are not showing up. So in this case, I have Synapse set to exclude any negative results for lot size. So, and you have full control over that. So in this case right here, it says I had a result of -$3 using group data on my neighborhood data set. So, and it says user excluded result. And that's just letting you know, based on your settings, we're not showing you that result because you don't think it's worth showing. You're automatically going to exclude it anyways. And then down here, you can see for true paired sales on the grid properties, which is just those 7, it said it couldn't come up, it couldn't find any pairs. So it did not run paired sales analysis on those 7 properties because it tried and it couldn't do it. So that's why there's no results. And basically that's just telling you this list here are all the dots that we did not show you here, that were just automatically removed for one reason or another, and it tells you why. So your options are, the options of why things could be removed is there's not enough properties, there's not enough pairs. It could be that you don't have enough properties with that feature. So for example, half bath, you can see down here, I don't have any blue or orange dots. And that's because I'm guessing especially with the orange dots, the grid in those 7 sales, I don't think I had a single property that had half bath. So in that case, there wouldn't be enough properties with that feature for it to be able to show it. And I believe our minimum is 3. So you have to have at least 3 properties in a data set that has that feature in order for it to show. Okay, so let's go ahead and move on here. Oh, there's another question in chat. Should we work Spark first so we can, when working transactional adjustments, use the same results between the both? I don't think so. So the reason is that Synapse actually is much more accurate with the time adjustments than how most appraisers would handle time adjustments using Spark or whatever other tool they use. So let me show you what I mean by that. I'm going to go to session settings and transactional adjustment settings. So right here is an example. So what most appraisers might do is they might go into Spark and they're going to get a result that looks something like this. All the results in Spark are based on a linear trend. It's like 1% a month, 2% a month, 1.5% a month, but that's a consistent increase. So if you're going to upload a bunch of properties, like let's say 4 years worth, things might have been stable here, maybe declining here and increasing here. So Synapse will account for all that using the polynomial method where it can go up and down and stable and up again. But in Spark, really what we're giving you is just one adjustment to use for everything. So for your grid, that's great because you probably don't need anything else for your grid, and you might just confuse underwriters if you had totally different adjustments for different properties. But for something like Synapse, where you have properties going back multiple years, you do want it to vary. So that's why I would encourage you not to use necessarily the Spark number. Now, there are situations like down here where we're only going back 4 months, where you may want to use the data that you got from Spark and just type that in. In that case, yes, but I think this is a really rare situation. I'm guessing many of you are not going to use just 7 properties to try and determine an adjustment. I kind of just put it in here as an example. And again, there are situations where it might be helpful, but in most cases, it's not to have something with so little data. Once you have more data, then this polynomial curve is going to be super accurate and probably more accurate than anything you'd use for your actual report. Okay, hopefully that made sense. Before I move on, I keep seeing a few things that I might want to show you here. One is if you don't want to do square feet for acres, if you don't want to do square feet for lot size and you want to do acres, you can just click this and swap it over to acres. So if it's blue, well, I shouldn't say that. That applies to Spark, where if it's blue, you can click on it to customize it. But in Spark, in Synapse, when you see this square feet here in blue, just click it and it will swap it over to acres. And then I also want to show you group data. It's kind of unique in that you can customize this on the fly. So I'll show you what I mean by that. So I can click this little blue gear icon next to group data, and you can see the actual results. Now it's kind of hard to see because I have all these neighborhood properties that are all over the place. But if I turn off the neighborhood properties, then you can see here's my competing properties. Those are the blue ones, and those 7 are the orange. And what it's really doing, so group data, for those of you who aren't familiar, and by the way, I don't want to get too deep into this because this could take forever if I did. And I do have videos that specifically go over every single method, and you can get to those with this green question mark here. So I can click that and be taken to our FAQ, and it says right here, understanding settings for controlling group data. So I can read about how to do that here, and I can also watch a video that I made showing you exactly how to do that. So just want to show you that's all here, and also why I'm not going to go into a ton of detail on this. But basically, group data, you're comparing one group of properties against another. So in this case, I have it set to go 10% below the median up to the median, which is negative 10% to 0. And it tells you the median here. So my median lot size is 7554. And then my second group is everything from the median up to 10% above the median. And so it's just comparing those two groups. And in square feet, those numbers are right here. And if I wanted to, I could expand those groups like this. I can say, you know what, I want to go here and include all those properties. And as you do that, the results are updating on the fly. So you can watch those results. As I change this, you'll see those results change on the fly. You find what works best in your area. Sometimes it's good to have an overlap. Sometimes it's not, as far as lot size or GLA. And then once you're happy, you have the results you were looking for, you can hit done, and it will ask you if you want to save that to your template as well. So hopefully that made sense, but again, you might want to check out the video if that wasn't super clear. And you can do this with garages, bathrooms, GLA, virtually anything other than things that either have it or don't. Like swimming pool, you can't do it because group data for a swimming pool is just all the homes with a pool and all the homes that don't have a pool. Those are your two groups. Okay, so hopefully that helped. And then I'm now going to show you modeling. And modeling, I think, is something that is probably one of the more powerful and cool features in Synapse. And hopefully it works here well, so I can really show it to you. So, okay, so we've locked in $3 as the appraiser. We've said, yep, $3, that's the right result, or that's the right adjustment for lot size. I marked it as done. Now, if I want to, I can model. And I say this in my videos, but I'll just say it again. This might sound kind of like I have no idea what modeling is. This is something Brandon made that's just kind of black boxy, and I'll never be able to explain it to an underwriter. But no, that's not the case. Modeling is really just adjusting every property to the subject based on this adjustment. So for example, I can go in and look at my properties and say, okay, property 1 that I uploaded for the competing file was 9,000 square feet. My subject is 7,000, so there's a 2,000 square foot difference. And my adjustment is $3 a square foot. So it's going to go and make a $6,000 adjustment. So it'll basically, if the subject, I can't even remember what I just said, but if the subject is smaller, obviously, it'll adjust the sale price of that property downward 6,000 or reverse if it's the opposite. So what you're doing when you do that, you're adjusting everything to your subject, and that actually allows all the rest of these calculations to be recrunched based on this $3, and usually everything gets much more accurate. So let me go ahead and show you. So right here, let's just look at the neighborhood data. I think you'll see the biggest impact here. So right here, I've got the highest regression result is about $96 a square foot, and group data, we've got $84. So 84 and 96. Now I'm going to model lot size, and let's just check out what happens here. So by the way, it's recalculating all the results other than lot size, because lot size we've locked in and said we're happy with it. There's no reason to change it. Okay, so again, lot size didn't move. All the results stayed the same, nothing changed. And over here, now, what did we have? So it was $96 for the highest regression result. Now it's 86. So it's falling more in line with what I would expect. In my opinion, it's still not quite there. It should be a little bit lower, but this is getting closer. So the more you model, the more accurate the results will be, especially for those data sets that aren't exactly like your subject. So for competing properties, it might not make a huge difference because they're all going to be fairly similar anyways. But for your broader neighborhood, where you might have properties that are way smaller, way bigger, have a pool, whereas none of your competing properties do, doing things like this, modeling all this, is going to help everything else down the line be more and more accurate. And we've discovered, I mean, it's pretty intuitive also, that modeling lot size in GLA has the greatest impact, because really these are the two main value drivers as far as adjustments you're getting on this screen right here. So when I go and model GLA, then I expect that probably all the rest of my adjustments are going to be much more accurate to what they actually should be. And just because of how lot size, you have a lot of square feet in a lot, you have a lot of GLA in a property, these are not as impacted by differences as things like full bath. So the reason a lot of times you'll see super wonky results for a full bath, in fact, I can probably show you one. If I hover over this, look at that, $55,000 for a full bath on these properties that are probably selling for around 300. That's just way too high for one full bath adjustment. And again, these were excluded because I chose for them to be. So you're getting all those wonky results, but when I model, then it will bring all those down, because it's trying to, basically what's going on as far as the math is, in regression especially, and in group data, it thinks that all the value difference between maybe two properties is because of that full bath. But so the more you model, the more you're normalizing everything to your subject, you're adjusting everything to your subject, so the less variance there is, and that allows all the rest of this to be much more accurate. So, and because I have competing properties in here, which help me a lot, especially with lot size and GLA, I can go ahead and get those two without really needing a whole lot of modeling, but then it will help everything else down the line. So I'm going to go ahead and do that here. Let's go ahead and do GLA. I'm going to get rid of these absurd ones up here so I can zoom in. Let's cut that out. I'm going to cut out all the super low ones here. So this is kind of what I'm left with. And I was expecting my adjustment to be right around $65, maybe $70 a square foot. And I do see that paired sales is 69 and 67. Depreciated cost is 68. The others are a little high or a little low, but if I wanted to, I could just kind of constrain it to whatever I'm actually placing weight on. Maybe everything there I'll place weight on, and that's a fairly big range in this case, $56 up to 77. But again, I can say, yep, I'm placing most weight on paired sales, depreciated cost, and maybe placing some weight, a decent amount of weight on the regression that has the best error score, which is, looks like $75 there. So I've got 67 up to 75. I feel very comfortable calling it $70. I mark it as done. And I can also then model it and then make everything else more accurate. Hopefully this is all making sense. Before I model this though, there's one other thing I want to show you, which is locking. So sometimes you may not want modeling to affect something. So in this case, let's say I'm really happy with how swimming pool looks maybe. I'm not in this case, but if I were really happy with it, I can say, you know what, let's lock that. And what that means is when I model, it will not allow these to be adjusted anymore. So none of these results are going to change. None of these so like I said, all the properties are basically being adjusted to your subject, and then we recalculate full bath, half bath, garage, but in this case we wouldn't recalculate pool. So let's go ahead and do that. I'm going to model, and again, it's re-crunching everything other than swimming pool. And by the way, I'll also show you how you can see what was calculated based on what. That's something I haven't shown you as far as modeling goes. Let's wait for this to finish here. And sometimes this does take a little bit of time, 15, 20 seconds to recrunch everything. There's quite a bit of math going on actually. So in this case, again, swimming pool didn't move. Now, if you hover over this little eyeball icon, hopefully you can read that. It says swimming pool is modeled on the following: lot size. And you can see it was not modeled based on GLA because I locked it ahead of time. So full bath though, it was, all these results were modeled based on lot size and GLA. And again, all that means again is that I adjusted all the properties I've uploaded to the subject based on $3 a square foot and based on $70 a square foot for GLA. And now full bath, I was expecting this to be between maybe $7,000 and $10,000, $8,000 and $10,000. So I can see, maybe snip those out, get rid of that. And now let's look at what we've got here. So I've got my competing properties for paired sales show between 7,000 and 9,000. Depreciated cost shows exactly 9,000. And I've got regression showing 8,300. I think I'm probably happy calling this 8 or 9. I'm probably just going to call it $8,000. And maybe I'll just place weight on all of these, just allow weight to be given to all these, and I'll mark that as done. And now let's go look at our comments. And you can see we've got the lot size comment, GLA, and full bath. All right, so I'm not going to go through and do all of these, but there is a little bit more that I want to show you. So the next thing is, what if you want to analyze, man, I might should have pulled different data so I could do things like views. I don't think any of these properties have views, but oh, I'm being told we have a question. The orange triangle said that true paired sales was not run due to insufficient number of sales, yet the chart shows a result for paired sales. Are there many different types of paired sale? Okay, good question. Yes and no. So what happened was, this is what you're talking about, I think, where it said true paired sales, median on grid, it said not enough pairs. So in that case, there weren't enough pairs with our grid properties. And if you remember, that's the data set that only had 7 properties. And you can see there's a median and an average. So basically what Synapse does is it finds all the properties that are matched pairs based on your settings, and I'll get to that in a minute here. So it uses your settings to decide what's a pair. And then once it gets that pair, it then calculates the adjustment. And so maybe it said that the lot size adjustment for a certain pair should be $2. And then it does that for every potential pair there could be. And so you have a list of a bunch of different adjustments: $2, $250, $278, $312. And then it takes the average of all those and the median. So in this case, this paired sale right here, this is based on my, you can read the little tooltip that pops up. It says true paired sales median. So again, that's taking that list of all the potential adjustments for the pairs, and then it takes the median of all those. That's $2.44, and that is based strictly on my neighborhood data. So these blue ones are my competing properties. These are my neighborhood properties. So there are more than just one. So you have the paired sales run on your neighborhood, your competing, your grid, whatever data sets you upload, and you have a median and an average for each of those. And then to add a little bit of confusion though, but it's also another benefit of having modeling. So imagine this: you have a, let's say you have a grid, and you have comp 1 and comp 2, and we had this all in our classes we took when we first were learning to be appraisers. They show you a grid, and you have maybe the 2 properties are identical except for lot size and swimming pool. So in this case, those 2 properties, when it comes to swimming pool, I can't say that they're matched pairs because the lot size is different as well. However, if you model lot size, meaning you adjust it to your subject, you then remove any variance due to lot size, and then you do have a matched pair for swimming pool. So what we did is, I'm hovering over these dots so you can see, and hopefully you can read it. Let me zoom in more time. Go back to pool. So here, you can see there's both true paired sales and adjusted paired sales. So true paired sales are the ones that are actual true paired sales. Nobody cares about modeling or any of that kind of stuff. It's just like, is it a matched pair or not? And that basically means that those properties had to be identical except for swimming pool in this case. But adjusted paired sales is where you can have a lot more, because you are basically saying, well, we've now basically said that everything is adjusted, normalized for lot size. We've completely normalized for GLA. So now we should, in theory, have a lot more matches than we had before. And so in this case, you can see for adjusted paired sales on my competing properties, it shows 6,300 matches, which is kind of cool. And they're actually fairly accurate here. These were looking at like $62. My adjustment ended up being 70. They're not too far off. And if I go look at, oh, I was hoping I could see, okay, never mind. It's not showing up there. But when I had, no, I can't find it. True paired sales. Yeah, I can't see how many original pairs there were. I probably cut those out. But anyways, so I don't know how many matches there were in the beginning, maybe 15 or 20 or 30, I don't know. But the more properties you open up, it's kind of exponential in how many matches you get, because not only do you have an extra property that opened up, but that property now may be a match for another 300 properties that it wasn't before. So you can have a lot more matches, obviously, when you do that. Okay, so what else? Good question, by the way. Yeah, adjusted paired sales and true paired sales. And then you also have median and average for every single one. And you have it done both on all three of your data sets, or however many data sets you upload. Okay, so now I'm going to show you adding a feature. So let's say you want to add a feature that is not on here to try and hopefully get adjustment support for it. So I'm going to click add a feature, and then you'll have a list here of a bunch of different things that you can go and hopefully get adjustment data for. Now for views, I don't think this is going to work well with the particular set of data I uploaded, but basically when you see views here, what you're going to see is a list of all the properties that have views that you uploaded that vary from each other. So you can see I have some that had none, which is basically neutral residential. And then I had wash, preserve, mountains, common area, and city lights. Now this list is specific to my MLS. So all of you in different MLSs, I'm in Phoenix. For example, those of you in the Bay Area, for example, you're gonna have probably a much different list than what I have. You're gonna have things like Bay, Marina, Cove, all that kind of stuff. So it is specific to your MLS, just the way Spark is specific to your MLS. Looking at a question now from Lisa, do you recommend modeling after each category or just lot size and GLA? That's a really good question, Lisa. I would say that might vary based on your market. I personally like modeling. What I usually do is lot size, GLA, and then anything else that might contribute somewhat significantly, like full bath, half bath, and garage space. But after that, I don't really do anything else unless you have something really significant. So for those of you in areas or in markets or neighborhoods where you have views is a huge thing, then it may be just as important as lot size to model your view. Like if you have a really nice golf course and you have a view of that, or the ocean or whatever, views may be a big deal. In my area in Phoenix, that's not really a thing for us. So unfortunately, I don't have a great perfect answer to use in all situations. I would say absolutely for lot size and GLA every time. After that, I typically do full bath and garage, and then but really that's just kind of up to your market and what's important there. Okay, hopefully that helped. Let's see. Oh yeah, so add feature. Let's go ahead and do it. I'm gonna zoom out a little bit here to get back to normal. I'm gonna add a feature, and what should we do? You know what, let's just try views and see what happens. So I'm gonna try city lights. I don't know that actually any of these properties have city light views, but let's just give it a shot. Oh, and also another thing is we've had several appraisers ask about solar. Do we have that? So solar is a tough one. Solar exists in here. In fact, let's go see if we can find it. It'll be under energy efficient. So yeah, let's just look at it. Solar panels, let's add it and see what happens. Question, what do the dotted lines represent? Good question, and I forgot to cover it. It has to do with the error score. So I'll show you here once this is done. All right, so let's zoom in here and look at the hash lines. Actually, I'm gonna look at GLA. So the reason we have the hash lines is, and you'll notice we have these circles up here, which have, I'm sorry, the black circles around these results and the black circle around this result. So what happens is paired sales is actually on a totally different scale when it comes to measuring error score. You can't compare the error score of a paired sale result to the error score of regression. So those hash lines are to let you know this group right here. So group data, regression, and sensitivity, they're all on the same scale for error score. So you should only see in most cases one black circle anywhere between these hashed lines or anywhere from this hash line down. Paired sales, now in this case, the only reason you see 2 is because they're literally identical. Their error score is both 0.52. So they're identical, so they tie for best, and so they both have a circle around them. But that's all that's for, is to let you know. And there is no error score for depreciated costs, so that's why that one was kind of separated out there. Hopefully that makes sense. All right, so let me zoom back out, and let's go down here. So for city lights, again, and this is an example of why it may be a good idea to use your neighborhood data, because sometimes you may need to find an adjustment for a view, but you don't have many properties that are competing that have that view. So you either need to go maybe look at a bigger set of data like your neighborhood, or maybe you need to go find, like back here when I was showing you, maybe you need to go over here and find the similar competing properties, but in a different neighborhood. And those maybe have that view that you're looking for. So you go and grab that and load that in maybe as data set 2 or 3. So that's kind of an example here why you don't see any orange or blue dots, because there aren't any properties with city light views that were my competing properties. Okay, so I've got this, looks like 10 grand. To be honest, I have no idea if that's accurate or not, but they are pretty close to each other, between $9,700 and $10,300. So maybe the adjustment's 10 grand for that. I'm not sure, but I don't need that. So, but that's there if you want it. And then solar panels. What I was going to tell you about this, and you will sometimes see super negative numbers. And if you know solar panels are worth something, you know that you can immediately hover over all those and snip it out, because they're not even worth looking at or considering. And the other problem with solar panels, though, and this applies to other things, and I know you guys already know, I just want to point it out, is solar panels vary greatly. So just be careful on how you use this. Like, you want to make sure that the properties are at least somewhat similar as far as their solar panels go. Because if it's saying this property, which has, 2 kilowatt system is similar to the 10 kilowatt, then that obviously those are very different as far as value and cost. So you just got to be careful of that. Hopefully in the future we'll have ways, and I know some of you may be in an MLS where they actually tell you if it's owned and whether and how many kilowatts it is. So that's great if you're in an MLS that does that. And that actually leads me to one other thing I want to tell you. It's what we're working on right now. It will probably take us a bit more time to add it as a feature, but I think it's going to be a very powerful one. Is we're trying to make it so that you will be able to get an adjustment on anything that your MLS will allow to be exported. So if your MLS is one of those that allows realtors to put in how many kilowatts a system is, then you could actually go in, include that in your export in your MLS for Spark or Synapse. And by the way, I didn't even talk about that, but for those of you who haven't used Synapse yet, you use the exact same export method that you use for Spark, you use for Synapse. But if you wanted to, you can go in and add a few fields in there that you think you might want to get adjustments on and get adjustment results for those once we add that feature. All right, let me look here. How to best put this data in our reports? Commentary only, include graphs? If yes, how? Good question. So I am going to cover that here towards the end. Actually, are we coming up on an hour that I've been talking? When did we start this? Holy cow. Okay, so yeah, I'm taking too long. Let me try and go a little quicker here, and then I will, I'll show you how to actually load the data into your reports. Thanks for the question, Jackie. Okay, so anyways, you get the idea. You go in, you add whatever features you want to get adjustments on. I know a lot of you are in areas where you need basement adjustment information, so you can load all that in. So a couple other things I'm going to cover quickly here that I didn't. I'm going to go to the view data sets, something I didn't show you, which may be valuable to some of you. I can click this little gear icon and remove all the properties and start over, or I can also view or modify the data. And so I can come in here and look at all those 400 competing properties. I can see their basic information here. I can also click on them and say, you know what, I didn't mean to include this property, and just hit delete, and it will delete the ones you've selected. Let me unselect those. Also, I can scroll over and I can see any discrepancies between MLS and public records. So if you're trying to decide, oh man, what do I want to use for garage spaces? Do I want to use the public records data, or do I want to use the MLS data? I'm guessing in that case, most of us would use the MLS data, and that is the default here, but you can change that. And I can see the discrepancy with this red dot. So we use the red dot here, unlike Spark, where we just put the number in red. We've actually put a dot here, and that's because many of you actually have contacted us saying that you're, I think it's red-green or red-green colorblind, and so, or red-blue colorblind. So you can actually, the number doesn't actually look different to you. So we added the dot down here so that you can just note if there's a dot, that means there's a discrepancy. I can hover over it and it shows me that MLS says there's 2 garage spaces and public records says there's 0. And if I want to, I can click use public records and it will swap it over. Also, if I want to, I can just click where it says MLS and swap everything over to public records. So anyways, it's kind of up to you how you do this. And you can also view any properties you deleted, add them back in if you realize you did it on accident. And lastly, you can add a column. So right here, it's only showing me columns of data related to what I'm trying to get adjustments for. So you can see I just added view and energy efficiency or solar panels. So it added those 2 columns at the end. But I can add more data if I want to just look at it and see, you know, what are the days on market of these properties, add that column in and view that. So anyways, that's there if you want it. You can look at it. Wait, I'm reading. Do I have your data sets correct? Data set 1, 5 years of competing. Data set 2, 37 months, no filters. Data set 3, just the grid. Adam, no, that's not quite right. Data set 2, which is the broader neighborhood, that is 4 years of data. So not 37 months. I accidentally went back 4 years instead of 5. I meant to do 5 years for both of these, but so don't read too much into that. I went back 4 years, but yeah, you can do whatever you want, and you probably want to keep them fairly consistent. Okay, so let's finish with data. All right, and then let's see, what else do I want to show you? Oh, so this is the big thing, customizing it. So again, I'm not going to get into a lot of detail, but there is a lot of customization you can do in here. And a lot of this customization will help you go from getting wonkier results to more accurate results. And so let me just give you a couple examples. I'm going to click the gear icon. I'm going to go into session settings. And then here are my settings on how Synapse is basically handling everything that as far as the math that it's doing. So first, data source settings. This is where you can customize whether you want parking to come from MLS or public records, or financing or basement area or whatever. You have full control over all of that. And then I can go in here and say, you know what, here's how to tell, I want to tell Synapse what a paired sale is. So I can click on paired sales settings. And here it says age must be within plus or minus 20% to be considered a matched pair. Now, if I don't like that, I can just click this little edit icon and say, you know what, instead of using a percent, I just want to say, make it units and make it anything within 10 years. So now instead of 20%, it's going to say 10 years. And it kind of gives you a layman's explanation down here of what your setting means. Or if I want, I can say, you know what, I want to say something is a paired sale, or actually this is a bad example. Let me go to bedrooms here. So right here, here's another thing you can do. You can say anything greater than 2 will be considered a matched pair. So as far as bedrooms go, this is basically saying that if a property has 3 bedrooms and the next one it's comparing has 5, then it's going to consider those a matched pair. Because in some markets, there is no value difference between a 3-bedroom and a 5-bedroom. So that's my setting in Synapse, is to do that. Of course, you customize this to your market, whatever makes sense for you. Maybe it's greater than 3 or whatever it is, or maybe everything just needs to be an exact match. You can do that too. Must be an exact match. So for me, I have it set so full baths have to be an exact match. Anything different, then it's not a matched pair. So hopefully you get the idea. You can do that for basically everything. So parking, central air, heating, or I'm sorry, cooling, heating, fireplaces, all that stuff. You decide whether you want to consider it, not consider it, and if you want to have a little leeway in there. Like a lot of appraisers for GLA will do plus or minus 5% or 10% or whatever. And if it's within that 5%, then it would be considered a matched pair as far as GLA goes. All right, so that's that. And we have similar settings for depreciated cost, for sensitivity, there's settings. Oh, and this is actually an important one. I'm going to show you this, exclude results. So again, this is here where it says user excluded result. It excluded GLA result that was $267. which is super high and doesn't make any sense. So I can go to my session settings, exclude results, and here is where I set how Synapse knows what to exclude. So let's look at GLA. So basically, I have it set to % and 75%. So if I had this set to dollars, what that means is anything over $100 is basically going to be excluded. I don't even want to see it. It's not worth looking at. I don't care about it. And by the way, this is all custom to your template. So if you have really high-end homes, you can have Synapse handle those differently. When you're doing high-end properties, you use that template. This will all be different. Or if I have it set to %, what this means, I think I had it set to 75, which is high, but I just didn't want to exclude things that were only slightly high. But basically what this means is that anything that has a GLA that's greater than 75% of the value of the properties I uploaded will be excluded. So if the properties I'm uploading are, let's say on average, $200 a square foot, so just like 1,000 square feet and they're $200,000 or whatever, then that would be $200 a square foot. That means Synapse will exclude anything that's over 75% of that $200 a square foot. Hopefully that makes sense. And you can also choose to exclude negatives if you want to. If you know that lot size is always going to have value, not be negative, then you can just exclude that. Same with anything else you want there. And if you want to add more settings, you just click add setting and you can say, oh, you know what, I want to have a setting for basement or common areas. I can say common areas should never be over X% or over X dollars and set it up that way. All right. Let me see, is there anything else? Now there's a few minor things you can drag and drop. So I can take this and move it wherever I want to. If I think that pool exists is way more important than all these others, I can just put it right here so that I look at it sooner. And then last, I think I'm just gonna cover exporting. So this is, I'm gonna cover now what Jackie was asking about, which is exporting data. And Michael Mead, yes, this is recorded and we will put it in on YouTube and I'll send you everybody out the link. So yeah, if you guys need to go, I know I'm running long here, so feel free to take off and I'll send you the link. For those of you who are still with us, let's go ahead and show you exporting. Again, before I do though, really important, this question mark, don't forget about it. It should be really helpful in a lot of scenarios. Whatever you're looking at, when you click it, it should take you to a relevant part of our FAQ, and you basically just click on whatever is interesting to you. How does modeling work? This is all related to the results screen that we're on when we clicked it. What are error scores and why do I care about them? And almost every one of these also has a video going over that specific topic. All right, so now let's go ahead and export. Before I export, I'm going to show you the settings for exporting. So you can click this little setting button here, and you can choose what's going to be exported. So the primary adjustment summary, I think it was Jackie that asked about this. So we do have comments that we can export, but we also have a kind of an image that you can throw into your report that will give the reader of your report some, like a summary of all the different analyses that you did and what the results were. I'll go ahead and include method summary. Actually, I'm just going to include most everything. We don't have charts yet, so that doesn't do anything when you turn charts on. We don't have any charts in there yet. That is a feature we plan on adding. Matched pairs, I'm not going to turn that on, but basically, if you wanted to get an exact list of everything that Synapse said was a matched pair for every data set and for every feature, then you can turn this on and get it. I would just caution you about that because some features have a lot of matches, and so that can make your work file get very large, and it will also increase how long it takes to actually export the data. And then property information, let's go ahead and turn that on. Settings. Yeah, so let's just turn all those on. I have a video covering images. Some of you may not want to attach a PDF to your report. You may want to attach an image. Any of you that use ACI, for some reason, they do not like our PDFs, so you have to use the image. So if you click yes here, that means you're going to get the PDF and you're going to get an image file, and you can just attach that image into your report or copy and paste that image into your report. All right, so those are the settings. Let's go ahead and hit export. All right, so we're done. And now at this point, I can download, these are the 3 main documents that we figured that most appraisers may want to include in their report. So these won't necessarily go into the work file. You can download these separately, which just makes it easier to attach into your report. And I'll show you what I mean here. So let's download the PDF there, PDF there, the PDF there, and the entire work file. Keep in mind, as it says here, the work file also includes these PDFs. So you don't have to download all 4 of these if you don't want to. It's just, here, I should have done this ahead of time. I wasn't thinking. Let me see if I have an a la mode report open here. Let's just open up a fake report so I can actually show you. It'll work similarly with ACI or ClickForms or Nexus, so don't worry about that being too different. The only difference is in ACI, you can't use the PDF, you have to attach the image. So, all right, we've got a report open. Okay, so I've got the work file here. I've got these 3 PDFs. So now I'm just going to open them and show you what they look like, and then you can decide if you want to attach them to an actual report. Oh, I have a question. Will these directly export to ENV files? You can absolutely include these in ENV files. These trying to think of the right way to say this. None of these will not be ENV compliant. They will all be ENV compliant. You can basically attach any PDF to an ENV report and it will work. It's just certain forms in certain form fillers are not ENV compliant, but as long as you are using a form that's ENV compliant, you can put any PDF or any image in there. So the answer is yes to that. That was my long-winded way of saying that. So let's go ahead and look at the first document here. This we call the adjustments document, and I'm going to zoom in a little bit. So it just says sales comparison adjustment support. You've got a summary. It shows you the effective date, what day you did the analysis, how many data sets you had, how many properties were in each data set, and then it discusses whether or not you utilize transactional adjustments in that, whether they were handled, which you would definitely want to have that on in almost every scenario. And then down here, it says, okay, the appraiser got adjustment results for 3 different features. I did lot size, GLA, and full bath. And here are the results that the appraiser gave weight to, from a low of 244 to a high of 360. And there's basically a dot on this line from the low 244 to the high of 360, representing everything that you placed weight on. And then down here, it just tells all the different methods that you utilized in order to arrive at that adjustment. Basically, everything else you did not place weight on, so it's not included in here. And then the same thing with GLA. We had a whole bunch of results from 56 to 77. We decided on 70, and here are the different methods we used, and full bath, same thing. So it'll have as many of these here, as many of these little cards here as you got adjustments for. The only thing that's really important is you have to mark done. If you don't mark done, then Synapse doesn't think you actually finished it, and it will just move on. I will tell you that we are looking into possibly having a different way of doing this where you don't have to click done on all of these, but we haven't finalized that yet. Okay, so let's look at the comments. So the comments, you get a PDF, and I should also mention that you get a Word document as well. So if you just want to copy and paste the comments and copy them out of the Word document, paste them into your report, you can do that as well. So here's a PDF. You can attach this to your report if you want to, or copy and paste, and it just has those comments that we showed. And again, you have full ability to customize these to your liking. Let's go look at the methods PDF. So this is just a generic document, and it's the same every time you hit export. This doesn't change at all. This is just something to explain to your reader. If you want to show it, of course, that's all, however you want to do it. It basically explains, here's what allocation is, here's what depreciated cost is, blah, 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 all through all the different ones, what every single method is in kind of layman's terms that anybody should be able to understand. So you may want to attach that to your reports just to help fend off any questions on what the heck is Thielsen regression and that kind of thing. Again, though, also, I would encourage all of you to get at least somewhat familiar with it. So we have another document, which I'll show you here. It's in the work file download. Let me bring that over. It opened up on my other screen. So it's called the method details. It's this one right here. I'm going to open that up. And that one goes into great detail on everything Synapse does regarding transactional adjustments. It even gives example. It tells you, here's how we decided to handle transactional adjustments. We used the appraisal of real estate 14th edition and also valuation by comparison by Mark Ratterman. And it tells you all the different transactional adjustments, property feature adjustments, and then it goes into detail on every method. Group data, it gives examples on how it was on how you can calculate those. This gives you a better idea. This is not for the reader of your report. This is mostly for you to refer to if you ever want to on how different things are calculated. So there's examples in here for virtually everything on how it's calculated. And I would also encourage you, we have a playlist on our YouTube channel that is called adjustment. Actually, I'm just going to show you real quick. Let's go to choice valuation and click on choice valuation, playlists. So you can go to playlists and it's adjustment methods. It's this one right here. And there's a full playlist. Basically, it's a video of me covering in detail every single different method and how it works, and showing you in Excel. So you can go hand calculate it yourself if you wanted to. All right, let's get back to where we were. We got that. I was showing you the, oh, here, let's open that up. All right, so in here, this is our work file folder that it downloaded. We have the method details, which is that detailed document I just showed you, but then there's a folder for everything. So if I want to go look at the comments, I have the PDF, which I've already shown you, but then there's the Word document version as well. And for details, I can go in, look at the details on GLA, and this is genuinely very detailed. So it talks about your transactional adjustments, how you handled those, what the actual formula for the time adjustment you use. It shows true paired sales, how many actual pairs there were for my competing properties, what the error score was, the result, how many possible, this is the number of potential pairs, here's how many it actually found, and it does that for basically everything. And it also tells you when there were no results. And lastly, this is kind of important, if you're going to go and look at this document, it puts an asterisk next to it if you did not place any weight or consideration on it. And it tells you that right here, what the asterisk is for. So it goes through here and it has the math for everything, adjusted paired sales, median, average, group data, how it was calculated, depreciated cost, blah, 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 all that's in there. And then what else do we have? And it has that for every feature that you analyzed. Property info, this is pretty basic. It just shows the information about your subject, what you told Synapse about your subject. Won't get into details. And then settings. So this shows all your different settings on how to calculate paired sales, depreciated costs, blah, 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 all that kind of stuff. So you basically could recreate anything based on this very detailed work file. Now, the last thing I'll show you real quick, it's pretty straightforward, and I'm sure all of you know how to do it, but I'm just going to show you putting an actual document into your total report. So let's pop open a report again, and let's say, sorry, I've been working a lot with ACI and doing theirs for a second. So let's go ahead and insert page from PDF, and we'll call this adjustment support. Whoops. And I'm going to go browse for that. And it's this one in my downloads folder that I just downloaded. It's that one right there. I can also choose the comments one if I wanted to, but I'll open that and hit OK. And now I can go look, and there's my document called adjustment support, and it's in my report. And if I zoom in, oops, it's not working on my keyboard, so I'll use this. Then you can see what it looks like as you zoom in. Now, I'm not sure how this looks to you. It doesn't look super crisp to me, but this is where it comes in handy to use the actual image file. So if instead you just add a full-size image page, and then you add and you put that image in there, it actually looks a bit cleaner. So I would encourage all of you to go try the image method instead. But that's pretty much it. I think I covered in broad strokes most of the features of Synapse. Anybody have any questions before we log out here? Feel free to unmute yourselves or put it in the chat. Nothing? All right, you guys are making it easy
Brandon,
on me.
I have a quick question.
Yeah, go for it.
When can I send you some money?
You know, anytime. Is this Ed? Ed, feel free
like
anytime.
To do that.
I appreciate it, man.
When can we buy
this is going to be in beta for a little bit longer. We just want to make sure it's solid and working well. We feel like it's a good product as it is right now, but we do want to make sure it's solid. Once we end the beta program, then everybody will get a 2-week free trial, just like a brand new customer would. And then once that 2-week free trial is over, then you can start giving us your money, Ed. Thank you. Oh, and looks like there's a question in chat. Class bought Data Master. Are they looking at Spark also? No, Class is not looking at buying Spark. They have not talked to us. So yeah, thanks for that question. Anything else? Feel free to chime in. Does my computer do all of the calculations and sorting, or yours? Your computer does not do the vast majority of the calculations. Nearly every calculation is done on a server that we spin up momentarily. So basically we spin up a server for every calculation that's being performed just to perform that calculation, and then we send that data to your computer and spin the server back down. So hopefully that made sense, but yeah, it's calculated on servers that we spin up. Because we weren't sure, there's a lot of appraisers that have some older computers, and this could take forever to calculate, especially some of the methods like paired sales is actually very compute intensive when you have a lot of pairs. And so is, there's a regression method called least absolute deviation, which in my opinion is one of the more accurate methods, but it's also super math intensive. And depending on how many properties you uploaded, it actually could be like 1 trillion calculations just for least absolute deviation. So yeah. We didn't want to rely on computers if we didn't need to. Any other questions? Okay, thanks everybody. Really appreciate you trying out. Also really appreciate all of you being beta testers. Feel free to give us feedback. If you don't already know, you can click this little gear icon and report a bug or issue. So just click that, name the issue, whatever you want, and just give us a description of what's going on. Also, you can feel free to give us a call or shoot us an email. All right, thanks again, guys. And I appreciate you sticking with us for 1 hour and 20 minutes. I know that ran long. Take care, everybody.
Thanks, Brandon.
Absolutely.